Hello, friends in the void of the internet. I've recently gotten into collecting skulls and bones after finding a raccoon skull in my garage, right up here. So today I wanted to show off my bone menagerie. If you really think about it, collecting skulls as an adult is really just the natural evolution of collecting fossils as a child. So first I'm going to show you the one that started my collection. So this raccoon skull is my first skull, aside from the one I was born with, I guess, but I can't really get that one out to play with it. We found this raccoon skull in our garage after being on vacation for about a week or so. Then we didn't go in the garage for another week, so it was in there for at least 2 weeks, probably longer, because it was mostly only bone when we found it. So anyway, we went to the garage and my husband saw it first and he was like, asked me if, is that your doing? Pointing to the skull. So I'm not sure what he thinks I'm doing when I say I'm going to go play outside, but it definitely was not my doing. Anyway, after we found it, I looked up online how to preserve skulls. So I learned how to degrease skulls using dish soap and how to whiten them using hydrogen peroxide. And that's what I did to clean this guy. Her name is Myra, which is short for my raccoon. First, I found the skull and a few other bones, including 3 paws. Later, some more bones appeared in the same spot. So I guess what must have happened is that she got caught up in the garage door mechanism, and then through the decay process, the bones came loose and were released to the garage floor. So anyway, I found her about a week or so after I finished the descent portion of Rod and Ring, which I've talked about in more detail in other videos. So I'm not going to get into that too much right here. But it almost felt connected in a way, as though the powers of the underworld wanted me to care for this departed animal as part of my initiation. So to honor the raccoon as well as Erishkigal and the underworld, I incorporated a quote from the descent myth into the display I made for the skull right here. Let's see if I can get it focused. It says, Nyarsa Kuraki Kazu Naanbae, which translates to, you must not open your mouth against the rights of the underworld. Most English versions translate it to something like, the ways of the underworld are perfect, or do not question the ways of the underworld. So I thought this was an appropriate way to honor both the animal and the powers of the underworld. I made the stand textured a bit, kind of give it the impression of tree bark. So my spiritual practice is mainly centered around worshiping my deities, but I also have some animal and land spirits that I work with. However, I've always had trouble connecting with my ancestors. But after becoming comfortable with working with skulls, I got the idea to incorporate animal skulls as a focal point in an ancestor altar to help me to connect more with the spirits of my ancestors. 3 of the 4 sides of my family can be represented by different animals, so I thought this would be a good way to help me to connect with the spirits of my ancestors. The first skull I got for this project was this wild boar skull. I've named him Wilbur, of course, with an E, not a U, because I spelled it correctly. I got him from a seller on Etsy who found him in the forest in Florida. I've made this little display for him with a terrarium. It's got a little tablet there that just says wild boar in Sumerian. Since it would be really hard and expensive and probably illegal to get a African lion skull, I went with a mini replica lion skull and a lion paw print instead. The base here just says lion in Sumerian. Then I also have a cat skull that I got from an oddities show. I've named her Fern. Up here I have a bobcat skull. I call her Bobby with an I at the end. And over here is a Canadian lynx I've called Linnea. It's very difficult to tell a bobcat skull and a Canadian lynx skull apart, but I found a couple of key differences. Maybe I'll make another video to show how to identify between the two later. Back over here, I have some other skulls that aren't part of my ancestor altar. Here is my English carrion crow. I originally wanted an American crow, but then I found out that it's illegal to keep parts from most North American birds because of the Migratory Bird Treaty Act of 1918. Basically, in the old-timey days, people liked to kill birds so that they could use their bits and bobs to make into hats. So the government put an end to that with the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, which prevents keeping any parts of native migratory birds. It's still okay to import similar species from overseas, however, which is why you can have an English carrion crow skull in your collection. And if you come over here, I have a goat skull that was painted by an artist from Etsy. It reminded me of Dumuzi, to whom goats and sheep are sacred, so I keep him by my copy of the Red Shepherd. His name is Shu Dumuzi, which means blessings of Dumuzi. Yeah, I can't get through a whole video without talking about ancient Sumer. Sorry, not sorry. Then next to Shu Dumuzi, I have this deer jawbone. Someone else in my group found it while we were out getting rid of invasive mantis uthicae. And then I found this other shard of it right over here that matched. I asked if I could bring it home because I'm a weirdo. I used some just plain white Elmer's glue to glue it back together. Then over here is my last one. A little Mexican free-tail bat skull. I call her Nyx, and I got her from Skulls Unlimited. Skulls Unlimited claims that they get all of their skulls ethically, and that they're all skulls that would otherwise be destroyed or discarded. But I've since read that there's no ethical ways of harvesting bats for specimens. So until I do some more research, I'm not going to recommend buying any bat skulls from Skulls Unlimited or anywhere else. So that's my bone menagerie so far. I'd like to someday get a mountain lion skull if I can find one that was ethically obtained, and other feline species if there are any others that can be legally and ethically obtained. I'd also like to get a coati. Those are like Mexican raccoons that I saw when I was in Mexico, and they were super cute and fun, so I'd like to have a skull from one of them if I can source one ethically. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.